Hey guys, welcome to the show. Today in the show, I have Andrew Ferebee. He's on the show to talk about his podcast and blog, Knowledge for Men. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Awesome. It's good to be here.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about how you got started with this blog? And I know you said you kind of transitioned into a podcast, and you've recently launched this within the last year. You're obviously doing really well. Do you want to talk a little bit about your story and how you got started with all this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really important to understand here is I started a blog which was getting at its height about 100,000 views per month when I was blogging regularly. And I just transitioned now into a podcast in November of 2013. And the podcast is, I would say in November, I had about 4,500 downloads. In December, I had 50,000 downloads. And so far in January, it's about January 28th or 29th right now, and we're at 132,000 downloads. So I've done some work here, been grinding really hard. And what I really want to point out though is I started this all blogging, internet marketing, this whole online business world with zero experience. I had no prior experience when I started blogging, and when I started podcasting, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just Googling forever, going on YouTube, trying to figure out how to get this stuff started. So those are just some of the highlights. Um, I would say right after I graduated college in 2012, I was working for Target, which is I was a manager of a large retailer. So I'm sure it's a national company, actually international now, but I was working that job and it paid well. I had student loans, so I felt like I had to get a job, the highest paying job that I could get, and I wanted the medical insurance and benefits. So I took that job and I did it for about a year, but after about 7, 8 months, I quickly knew that this is something that I don't want to do, which was not Target, which was not being a manager. It was that having just a job. I wanted the lifestyle. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to build something that mattered to me. So I went all out and I quit. And after about a year, and that was in May. That was May, the end of May in 2013. Hopped online. I had the domain previously, and I'd been reading a little bit about online marketing, and then boom, I just got online, started blogging, writing like crazy, just reading like crazy, watching videos on YouTube, just learning and growing, and from there just started the blog, and then transitioned into podcasting later in November.
So that's really interesting. So, I mean, how long have you had the blog in total? Because I know you recently only started the podcast, but how long has the blog been out?
The blog, I would say I had the domain for about a year, and I wasn't really doing anything with it. It was actually a Joomla website. I met with a developer on Craigslist, and I just said I wanted a website, and he set me up with. He actually asked me, "Do you have a domain?" And I said, well, "What's a domain?" And he's like, "Do you have a hosting account?" And I said, "What's a hosting account?" So it really shows you how much knowledge I had with
Right, right.
building a business, so or just getting online. So that was probably a year before. So I would say in 2011 I had the domain, and we had the website up, but I really wasn't doing anything with it. And then when I quit my job is when I went full time, and I was like, this is it. Like I need to make this work because I basically burned my ships by quitting my job, and so I went full time with the blog in June 2013, and then launched the podcast in November 2013.
Wow. So you really, I mean, with the blog itself, I mean, you said you really started this thing from scratch basically last year. Um, how did you really bring in all this traffic and all these visitors, all these people? Was it like blogging about topics that just people were really interested in, and Google picked up on that, or like where have you really found the audience has come from?
Yeah. So yeah, great question. I focused all of my energy on producing great content, like amazing content that it probably could be sold. I could probably wrap it up into like a short ebook or like some sort of short guide. Or I would create articles instead of, your average article is about 600 words to 800 words. If you're going above that, like you're really going above and beyond. My articles were in the range of 2,500 to 4,000 words. I was putting together tons of just great content, and I would pour like over a week into just one article. And this would be like a full-time writing, 8 hours a day, just really trying to figure out the best content that I can get. And once I had these articles, I would leverage social media. I would leverage my own personal Facebook page. So I didn't have a Knowledge for Men Facebook fan page yet. Or if I did, it had like less than 20 likes, which were just my friends. But I would just leverage, I would put the article on my own Facebook, and from there I would get people sharing them. I would share my articles, and at the bottom of all my articles, I'd put a clear call to action, and I would just ask people like, hey, if you enjoyed this article, or if this article had an impact on you, can you please share this with your friends so that we can impact more people together? And on some of the articles, I would actually make a video of myself talking about like the creation of the article, as if this article was a product. And I'd take them through how it got started, why I wrote this article, and what it would mean if you would share it. And it would get picked up all over. Just people would share it. And one person shares something on Facebook, like, each person's going to have maybe on average 500-600 friends. And
Right.
what are the chances that somebody else is going to share that, especially if it's from their friend? So I would say during that time period, 90% of my traffic came through Facebook, and the other 10% was coming through social bookmarking sites like Reddit or StumbleUpon or
Sure.
Dig. And I was driving a lot of traffic through basically social networks, and I would say less than 1% came from Google organic search.
Wow. Yeah. So that's really, I know that, like, I'm not huge on Reddit, but I've found myself more on there like the last year, and I'm in like a few communities, and I know that place, like, if something gets picked up, it just becomes insanely viral.
Yeah, the key with Reddit, actually Reddit is I like Reddit more than Dig or StumbleUpon. Reddit is more simple, and the key is, yeah, you got to find a subcategory. They have something called subreddit, and
Yep.
when you find your niche, and you don't go for the one with the largest group. I would try and find the ones with the largest group, thinking that, oh, if I get in here, then all these people will like it. But if you're in the wrong subcategory, then you just get owned. Like, they just like make fun of you, or like
Yeah.
they boot you down, and the comments will destroy your your hope for being successful. So finding the right subcategory, and then before then, you want to be an engaged user. You don't want to just use Reddit to post your posts. You want to be engaged, and you want to build some friendships there. So when you do post something and they see that it's from you, somebody who you've previously helped before will go and give you that bump up. It really just takes you just need like 15 or 20 bumps, and then from there you're going to start getting some leverage. Especially if you're writing good content, then there's no reason why somebody shouldn't bump you up and like it even further.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I haven't, like, out of all the interviews I've done, I don't think I've talked to a single person about Reddit, and I haven't really seen people ever really talk about using it as like a traffic source, but it's such a powerful system, like seeing what some of the stuff like happens over there, because there's literally everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that not all traffic is made equal, and the traffic coming from Google, or the traffic coming from organic search, is probably going to give you the highest like time on page. It's going to give you a lower bounce rate, but the bounce rate coming from Reddit will be pretty high, because if you think about it, when you're on a social bookmarking site, you're really just like looking for quick consumption. So you're going to get a lot of traffic. So your goal at that time is to try and convert that traffic as quickly as possible into a lead, or get them to opt in. So that's when I started messing around with opt-in and pop-ups to try and really
Sure.
quickly convert all that traffic that was coming in. So then I can make them, into, a fan or a user. Just trying to let them know that, hey, like, I have a lot more other content that I have as well.
Right, right. Now, I mean, you've got, obviously, you're getting a lot of traffic. I know, just since we're on the topic, I wanted to ask, how have you been like monetizing between the blog and the show? Like, do you have any ebooks or anything that you're kind of giving away? I know you had Audible. I saw that on your show. Um, what
Yeah.
else are you doing to kind of like monetize the blog and the show as is?
Yeah, I would say that the easiest way for anybody to really get started with monetizing your blog is through affiliates. and affiliate is just promoting somebody else's product. And I would highly recommend promoting a well-known product or a product that you have already used or something that you support. And so yeah, I was selling affiliate products in the areas of what like entrepreneurship. I was selling affiliate products with dating and some health products, and then from there I was making some pretty good, some pretty decent income, and then from that also coaching. Just by writing a lot and through podcasting, people really, they tend to really connect with you or connect with your message. And so I have some coaching packages for personal development and also for online marketing, blog, and podcasting.
Cool. Yeah. So you've really got, you basically kind of figured it all out in a short period of time, how to get everything rolling.
It's all a learning process. I would say for honestly, it really just kind of started to happen. Like it's even when I was getting hundreds of thousands of visitors, I still didn't know what to do with it, and I had to learn to quickly capture. I mean, that took a while to figure out that like, hey, I was gauging my success based on my traffic, which is wrong. You really want to gauge it based on your leads, your opt-ins. You want to look at other ways to measure your success, but gauging it on traffic alone, traffic is just traffic, but you got to convert them. You got to have a goal, something, a call to action for that user to follow up with.
Sure.
So I mean, it's really just been like the last 3 months where I really started monetizing, and the first 3 months is really just building a community and pumping out really good content.
Yeah. I mean, I like that you've been like from the beginning. It sounds like you really knew the focus on those articles. It was important to release like quality, epic content.
Yeah, absolutely. Epic content is king, and I know when I first started, I was getting overwhelmed with all the internet marketing. There's just so much content available on how to do this, and the number one thing that I mean with any business is just always content is king. And I didn't try to outgame Google. I just let Google find me. I figured that if I had good content and people liked it and I had good metrics based on my analytics, meaning like high, there's low bounce rate and there's average time on page, things like that, like low exit percentage, then Google's just gonna see that and they're gonna rank my article. And so I spent very little time with SEO. In fact, I probably spend like almost zero time trying to figure out SEO stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I figure if you probably focused on like very basic on-page elements and the content's good and you have good traffic already, Google's definitely going to pick up on a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, Google spends, I mean, they're such a huge company now. They spend billions of dollars just trying to create like the perfect search algorithm. And so it's only getting better and better. And the number one thing that they want, and it's clearly written, and they tell you what they want actually. You can Google what is it that makes a good blog or a good website, and it's just good content. Like they just want to give their users or the people who use Google or Firefox they just want to, give them good, relevant content. So
Sure.
if you do
Yeah.
that, then you'll do well.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about like the transition? Like, obviously, you started this podcast. I mean, where did that idea come up? Was it that you just wanted to start reaching out to these people that were, surrounding this topic of, the whole knowledge to men niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I lot. I was writing like full time, and writing's really really challenging, especially after you started pumping out like a lot of your best work. And I kind of felt like, man, like I'm not sure if I can keep this up, like keep up this pace of just publishing good content. And I wanted to get guest posters on my site. I wanted to build Knowledge for Men into a site where it's like other people are contributing to it, something like Huffington Post, where there's just a lot of contributors that make up all that that site. So I started getting guest posts and found that the guest posts weren't as good as the posts that I had. So I had to like go back and forth with some of the guys. It's like, hey, this is like a 400-word article. Like this is really just trying to use my website to get some backlinks to their site is what I felt like. So I thought, hey man, why don't I just interview, and that would be great content right there. Just because talking only takes like 30 minutes to interview somebody
Yeah.
versus writing an article where that could take well, for me, I would spend hours and hours, and for others, it's still the same. So I transitioned into interviewing, and I was using YouTube to publish my interviews, and I was doing it similar to how we're doing it now. Just I would interview, I'd take the video, and then put it on my Knowledge for Men YouTube page. However, I found that I wasn't getting a lot of traffic through that channel, and So I quickly just kind of converted into podcasting because I felt that it's the same thing. I'm doing exactly the same thing, but it's minus the video. And there's already a hungry, crowd of people that are looking for, high quality content, and they're looking for interviews with some of these guys that I have. So that's what led me into podcasting. Was I kind of was being drained personally from writing, and so I wanted to bring on other people who had expertise in this niche, and then boom, just went from YouTube and then went to iTunes podcasting and a couple other places like Stitcher Radio and Android.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So I mean, I actually tonight I went on your show and I was like, I wanted to see what kind of guests you had on before I interviewed you to get an idea of what type of content you had on your blog, and I was surprised to find that you interviewed Dan Bacon of The Modern Man. And it was funny to me because years ago I picked up one of his courses and his ebook, and I think I spent a couple $100 on it. And I read through all that stuff like religiously over and over again, when I was kind of like at this point in my life where I was like really trying to learn like dating, and obviously men everywhere want to know that stuff. And some people might laugh at like buying into some of that stuff, but I thought it was really cool that you actually reached out to him and interviewed him on your show.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, and yeah, I think personally a lot of guys might think, oh, it's kind of weird to spend money, but actually for you, I think that's awesome. You're spending money in yourself, and I think that's the best investment you can ever make is personal development. Whether you're reading books or videos or you're taking courses, I mean, there's no better investment than one in yourself, and that's only going to impact the people around you just because you're kind of reaching for your height, you're going for your full potential. So I recommend everybody to get involved in any sort of personal development. So but yeah, Dan Bacon is an awesome guy, and that was a great interview.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. In the way that you kind of do like the Q&A at end, at the end of your show. I thought that was interesting to kind of like add a little bit to it. But it was kind of like the whole episode was almost like him just repeating the advice that he gives in his books, like in a very minor form.
Yeah, I'm sure he does that a lot, but
Yeah,
nonetheless, still good content.
well, I mean, the base advice is there, but when it comes to like the dating world, a lot of people, all have their opinions. I loved how he talked about how he struggled a lot with different things, and read all these different tactics, but then he kind of like tried to master the whole thing and really come up with a solution that works, and then actually, went out there and did it for himself, and you know, shows all these examples and talks about it like he's very real.
Yeah, and I think you kind of experienced something like that. For the listeners, we were talking, me and John earlier, and he had gotten involved in some other internet marketing clubs that were kind of teaching him some of the, not the best tactics, just like Dan Bacon, where he was introduced to some of the earlier pickup advice, which was leading him to get some bad results. So then he kind of had to learn and figure out where was the good advice and learn his own route, which is kind of like what you said earlier. And now
Yeah,
you're listening
exactly.
to better guys like Derek Halpern, Pat Flynn, and John Dumas. So I think that frame just kind of goes with everything in life. It's like there's a lot of like there's bad advice out there, especially online nowadays. There's a ton of content out there, and you kind of got to be careful because people probably want your money. So you got to go out there, learn what works, and just learn your own path and figure it out for yourself, and find the right mentors to have and coach you throughout the way.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found like, and it really kind of goes with what we're talking about was there's a Jim Rohn quote that says, you are most like the top 5 people that you hang out with or that you spend your time with. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much like, I've found that to be so true in like the last 10 years of my life, just seeing the kinds of people that you hang around with. And that goes true for anything, especially in online marketing. If you're hanging around and learning from people that aren't teaching, legitimate ways of doing things, and it's going to basically rub off on you, and you're going to be doing the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you won't know that you're doing bad things because you're just following what other people are telling you to do. So,
Exactly.
yeah, Jim Rohn, that quote has been the biggest thing in my life as well. Just your environment shapes who you are, and that'll go for every aspect of your life, as far even like your business, your health, like what you eat, going to the gym, your relationships, your own personal growth. Like some people might laugh at you for purchasing something about dating, and others like myself think that's amazing because you're developing in yourself. So who you hang out with is really going to shape who you are in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Now, in terms of like your audience, I mean, you've obviously like grown this very largely. I saw you had almost 200 reviews on iTunes. Some were, I didn't look at everyone, but it looked like some of them were pretty like critical. Some were really positive. Like what do you think you're kind of offering, I guess, in your niche, like that's really different from what some of these other shows are out there? I honestly haven't spent a lot of time looking to see what else is out there that's similar to your show, but I feel like there's got to be other stuff out there that's like this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things. I think there is a men's lifestyle. There's a lot of different brands out there, and that are they're trying to help guys, which is great. And kind of why I started Knowledge for Men, just to backpedal, is because when I was kind of growing up and transitioning from like teenager into adulthood, I was always searching for something online that would be a good place where guys can go and learn about what it is to be a man, what does it mean, self-discovery, what is self-actualization, like just asking these questions. And all I could find really on these men's websites, not to talk them down, but like if we're talking about Maxim or FHM or we're really just or AskMen.com, which is probably one of the most popular ones.
Sure.
Those are really just, in my opinion, like dumbed down versions of Playboy, where really they're leveraging like women to get, it's men's entertainment. It's not really a men's personal development website. Like if you were to go to, I don't even know what it looks like, but I've done it before on an interview, but if you were to go to Maxim.com right now, there's probably something on there about like the top 100 girls of 2014 to look
Right,
out for.
right.
If you go to AskMen.com, I did this during a presentation in one of my college, and I was like, check it out. What does it say? And we checked it out, and the front cover or the front page said "Celebrate Masturbation Month," and it had a guy like doing a high five with his buddy. And so like that's really men's entertainment. Like that's funny. Like I get it, but as far as like developing yourself into becoming the man that you want to become, that's when I just was like, man, I kind of did all this research on my own, and I felt like I've read so much, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to put something together because I know there's a ton of guys out there that want some good content that can really help them improve their lives. And for women, I think there's a lot of content out there for women that does give them good advice. Not talking about like Cosmopolitan, but there's a lot of different blogs. There's other websites out there that really help women out, and I couldn't find one for men, so I just went and created knowledgeformen.com, which pretty cool name. And so
Yeah.
that's where I think I separate myself from a lot of these other brands, is that they provide men's entertainment. It's more funny, it's more casual, and I'm providing really hardcore value to a man's life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's kind of funny, like you said, there's all these places out there doing this, but it does seem fairly like it is more entertainment geared. It's not so much like the personal development, like learn how to do this. And now you've got people on your show, like people like Dan Bacon, who are, that they've kind of taken over like a very small niche of like men who want to learn how to, become great at dating and picking up women. And there's obviously like way more to that, when it comes to other things like, maybe getting a better job or like, the way you look or whatever the case, fitness, things like that. You could really dive into like quite anything, really.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at Maxim.com right now, and like you can check it out. But like their front page, it says "Girls in Green," and it's got like a half-naked girl on the grass, or like with her butt out, and it has to do, obviously, football's coming around the corner, Super Bowl. The next thing is this week in porn star tweets. It's like talking about what porn stars have tweeted, and so I mean, this is entertainment, and I think it's cool. You're looking at like beautiful girls and they're half naked, but this isn't going to help you get those girls. This isn't going to help you get the life that you want. And so that's where Knowledge for Men comes in. It's like you can get those girls. Follow my website, follow my blog, and these girls will want you, or that business that you want. I have guys on here who are millionaires. I've had Tony Shea on my podcast, who is the CEO of Zappos. Like, if this is good content that you can use to create the life that you want instead of just watching other people's lives.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, and you definitely have like a really good point about how this is more like, and I've always felt like that too with a lot of these magazines. It's really just there's lots of ads and things, and it's really kind of bulked up. Like the mass content isn't there, the like learning isn't there. It's not like they have a course or anything that you go through on how to really dive into some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
But so I mean, in terms of like future, like where do you kind of see things going in 2014?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I want to continue podcasting and really trying to raise the bar of who I can get on the show. This has been kind of like a game for me when I look at people's names and I shoot them emails. I see people at conferences and I just run up to them and I just tell them my story. And I don't want to share any names yet because it's not officially approved, but I've gotten
Sure.
some very big players out there in the world, some celebrity status people that would be on the show, and to me right now it's just kind of a game, like how far can I take this podcast, because
Yeah.
so far it's gone farther than I could have ever imagined. Within the first like 2 months I had, or first month I had guests on my show that I thought it would take me like years to get. So I just want to keep raising the bar of status on the podcast and just continue to drive more traffic to the website through the podcast and build an audience. And I do want to start creating some of my own products. I'm learning so much. I mean, all I'm doing is interviewing some of the brightest minds out there. And I want to put together products. I want to help and serve more people. And then I want to start putting together some live events, like live summits, where I bring some of these speakers from the podcast together for like a live event for guys.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, it's really cool, like, because I was looking at your podcast list, and I mean, you really only started this in November. I mean, it's like, you've already had all these people on. I guess what I've found is, like, lately for me, I used to feel, I know I interviewed Pat Flynn of the Smart Passive Income, who, we mentioned earlier is like a huge online entrepreneur. Everybody who's been listening to my show probably knows who he is because I talk about him, I feel like, more than I probably should. But anyways, he, when I first interviewed him, I was so nervous, and like I just like was looking up to him like he's this really big shot. And then I really started just looking at things more casually. Like, these people are, at one point they were just as low as I am, and it's not like I need to like be nervous around them. If I just act like they're my friends, then things will just go so much more smoothly. And when I interviewed Andrew Warner, I'll shoot that guy like emails like super casually, like he's like one of my buddies. And that guy is probably so busy and has so much going on. He's done almost 1,000 interviews for his show. He's releasing like a course, but I like email that guy like, hey man, I just did this and that. I just talked to him like he's a friend. And that's what I found works really well for like a lot of these guests. Like, for anyone who's afraid of reaching out to people, you'd be really surprised. Like, it's a lot easier than a lot of people would think.
Absolutely. I interviewed this guy, Greg Reed. I don't know if your audience or if you ever read Think and Grow Rich, but he's basically the modern day Napoleon Hill. He works for the Napoleon Hill Foundation. He just goes around the world and interviews like the most successful people. And I had him on my show and I asked him some things, and he's like, the most successful people in this world are the most available people. And I mean, I was like, okay, like you kind of put that together, but
Hmm.
really, like a lot of these successful guys, we think that they're like, they've already gone through the trenches. Like if you're already like kind of at the peak of your career, like you've gone through the trenches and you have like assistants and you have managers and you have vice presidents that are doing a lot of your work for you. And a lot of these very successful people, they have time on their hands and they spend it doing things that they like to do. And sometimes I honestly think that when I reach out to them, some of these guys are like kind of like they feel like kind of respected, or it's like they feel honored to be on the show. And so yeah, for all the guys out there, if you're trying to put together a podcast, or you're trying to interview people or blog, or even get a mentor, which I highly recommend for everyone, is just start shooting emails out. Just send out some, like you mentioned, John. Just be casual and be cool about it. Just send some emails out and see what happens. You lose nothing. It's not like everyone knows in the world that you emailed someone and he didn't respond.
Yeah.
It's just between you. Like nothing bad happens, and emails don't cost you anything.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you were talking, that piece of advice that he gave you. Just in general, like I've always found that, like lately for me, even with my show, like we mentioned before we started, I recently started doing written interviews on my show, and I was a little afraid of kind of like, sort of getting garbage because of the way I'm doing it. Is I'm promoting a gig on Fiverr just to make a little extra cash and hopefully meet new people. But I was actually really afraid of like having people like submit these inquiries to me, and they would just like have total garbage sites, like they wouldn't be very successful. But I found like some of these people are super successful, and they're sharing, and I'm getting a lot more traffic to my blog, and some of them actually have really great information to share. I'm building more relationships, so it's like I'm helping everybody, and it's just working out that much more. Like I'm making myself more available to help as many people as possible and like build more relationships by doing more interviews and pretty much reaching out to anybody that's having any kind of success.
Absolutely. I like what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of at least that's where I feel like I've been going with the current show, and that's why I've had so many different kinds of people. Like you've kind of, you're not so much in this like online marketing niche. Like you're really doing more of a very like, it's a focus on men, but obviously you have to like add those elements in because of what's going on with the traffic and the audience, and being able to kind of monetize that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're gonna try and do this full time, like you're gonna have to learn elements of internet.
Yeah. So
And
I mean,
honestly, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna ask another question. Was I know you mentioned earlier you kind of gave up this job at Target. You ended up leaving that. I mean, are you doing this full time now?
Yeah, this is Knowledge Tremendous full time, and yeah, it was really challenging when I quit my job because you had a really good stable income as a manager, and I was an executive for Target, and it was a great job, and I had no complaints for that company at all. It just wasn't for me, and it was really kind of scary. And so for anybody listening, it's like they're trying to think about doing the leap or they want to make the leap. I wouldn't say like just do it, like just do it. I think I made that move, but honestly, if I could go back in time, I would probably have just, instead of, going out and like spending money like with the girlfriend or whatever it is, like if I was going out drinking with friends, or I would have just focused more when I was working, like get off work at 5, 6 o'clock. I would have, ate dinner, like went to the gym, came back, like from 8 to 11. I probably would have just started building this website more seriously. And then on the weekends, I'd probably work 6, 7 hours every day on the weekends and slowly build a business up to where it starts earning just enough money to live at like the bare minimum to cover rent, cover gas, cover food, and then from there it's like you've reached financial freedom. I mean, in my definition of financial freedom, it's really just can you cover your living expenses and have a little bit extra for some entertainment. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're making $100 million a month, but
Sure.
just get enough to where you're free from having to show up at work at a certain time, and now you can really start focusing on building something that you really care about. And when you really care about something, it's like you're gonna be able to work like crazy. Like a 10-hour day is gonna feel like a 4-hour day when it's something you really want to do. Like you won't want to go to bed because you're like shit. Like I have sorry, I have so much work to do, and like I want to get it done because I'm building something.
Mm.
And it's not like at work where it's like you show up, you get paid, you leave, and it's like no matter if you were there or not, like that, it doesn't matter. Like somebody else can replace you. But when you're working on something, it's yours. It's like no one else in the world is going to do it besides you. It's like up to you to make this thing happen. So that really just kind of gets me going when I wake up and just grind through the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's kind of like what you described in a way. That's sort of like what I'm doing. I mean, I have this odd like third kind of third shift. It's like an 11 to 8 at my full-time job, and I'll find myself like sleeping in the morning, but at night, I'm doing a lot of these interviews. Like this week, I mean, literally, I got home literally 45 minutes ago. I basically had 10 minutes to like eat a little bit of food, and here I am now in this interview with you. And my girlfriend's also next to me playing video games, which I'd love to be doing right now, but I'm making like that sacrifice, to do these like little things that'll get me ahead. If I stick with it, I know that eventually it's going to get me to that point where I can say, see you later to my boss and leave my job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key with that is consistency. Is you just stay consistent on good actions. It's like you want to make sure you're consistent, but you also want to make sure your actions are really good. So you're doing the right things, and over a long period of time of good actions, being consistent, you're gonna get results. It's guaranteed. Just follow the people who are successful, model them, and just keep going. And yeah, like we talked about earlier, like surround yourself with like-minded people and also people who are like ahead of you, people who have already achieved what you're looking for, and then also like-minded people because they have all that motivation and energy. So I respect that so much. Anybody who's about to make the leap or is trying to make the leap, there's nothing better than doing the leap and then finally getting to the point where you're like, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's my main goal right now too, is to really get to that point. And I know, it's definitely not easy, you have to spend a lot of extra time. Like putting work into this, and putting your free time, sacrificing, maybe watching TV or whatever else it is you might be doing, watching The Walking Dead or something.
Yeah, Breaking Bad or something, or watching
Yeah,
some of these
yeah.
latest
I
movies.
It's funny because I never really watched a lot of TV when I was living with my parents. I'd mostly like play video games and stuff, and I bought a house in June, and I actually went out and found a roommate who turned into my girlfriend, and we just watched like a ton of TV now. We've watched like all of Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead and all these other shows. Dexter, we just recently finished. We watched that whole thing, and it's really fun. But like balancing everything. Like I still like if I have one of these interviews, like everything's easy to just take time to do an interview, and then I can spend other time like after watching a TV show. Like we recently got into like Shameless on I think it was like a remake of a UK show originally, but so we like bounce around, but just keeping that balance of like being able to still stay like actionable with all these things, but not like go overboard to the point where it's like, well, I'm not going to do anything and like fall off and just stop.
Yeah, I'm looking right here at my TV, and ever since I quit my job, it's just like the most dustiest thing ever. Like I haven't turned on the TV in like, I mean, I won't lie, like I've turned it on, but like I haven't sat down and watched anything for like a long period of time, in a very long time. And I honestly like don't even know what's going on in the TV world. Like people talk about shows, and I don't know what's going on. But
Yeah.
it just gets to that point where like what you're doing just matters more, and the people around you matter more, and that's what ultimately what's gonna matter. Like I can't remember what I watched last year or the year before. I have no idea, but I know that I watched a lot of TV.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all, for me, like I used to be really addicted to video games. I mean, I don't know if I want to, well, I guess in a way I could say it was it was an addiction, but I mean, I'll still play them like quite a bit, but I can't get into them anywhere near what I used to be able to really dive into. I think part of it's partly the fact that I moved into a home and now there's just a lot more that needs to go on. Like I'm a lot more independent now because I have a lot more responsibility, but I mean, that was like something I would just drain so much time into, and it's like really not getting me anywhere. Like it's not going to advance me in my life unless somehow I get good enough to play with the guys in like League of Legends or something. Start making money that way, but that's obviously like ridiculously competitive. It's a pretty rare that you're going to be playing video games and making lots of money and be able to quit your job doing something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, man, I think we've covered a lot. I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to share or mention while I had you, but I think we covered a lot. I did want to mention too. We'll talk a little bit about after, but I'll probably include this episode in a podcasting course that I released because I think there were some great tips in here for people that, especially about the whole thing about reaching out to people, that would be useful for those of, anyone who's in that course currently.
Yeah, absolutely. Just throw my name and then the domain, or like who I am, knowledge
Yeah,
for men,
yep.
and go ahead, go ahead. And for all the listeners out there, the best way to get in contact with me would just be my email is andrew@knowledgeformen.com, or just check out knowledgeformen.com and see what it's about, see if it's something you're interested in.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time out of your night to join me on the show.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and it's been great. Thank you.
Yep. Talk to you later.